This
is crack.
Well, no, not actually, but it may well be. In my youth, this was actually my greatest addiction. Well, actually, to be honest, it was this one, but whatever. The white one looked nice. I was feeling a little nostalgic and wishing there was still a place in the world for a device like this. And then after a little digging, I realized maybe there is. Let's talk about it. Now, I wanted to start by saying that this isn't the kind of thing I would usually talk about, but I wanted to go ahead because a big part of music is listening to it. I think you'll agree. So how did I even get on this subject? Well, I was browsing online on the Sony Electronics website looking for memory cards for my camera when I stumbled upon a very familiar name, Walkman. Like the uber popular cassette player from the 80s, Walkman? They still make that? I do remember as the landscape of musical consumption shifted from analog to digital, Sony had tried to piggyback the Walkman brand with their own line of MP3 digital music players. In the 21st century, the Walkman didn't play cassettes, it played MP3s, as was completely necessary at the time. But much like the ill-fated Microsoft Zune, the iPod just kind of dominated that market, to the point where other MP3 players just didn't really matter, and the Walkman, try as it might, barely made a dent. Now, once Apple released the iPhone, which had iPod functionality built in, and music streaming has pretty much become the norm, it's allowed anyone to listen to pretty much whatever music they want on any phone. A dedicated MP3 player is basically an antique at this point. Like, it's just not a relevant device in the current technological landscape. To the point where Apple themselves discontinued the iPod Classic in 2014, and really that model was only a slightly revised version of the iPod 6th Gen, which launched in 2007, same year the iPhone came out. They kept it around basically for anyone who still wanted it, but they knew full well that this device was not an important device anymore. They were just waiting for the public to catch on to that fact. The company went from introducing new variations of the product pretty much every year, whether it be the full-featured iPod, iPod mini, iPod nano, iPod shuffle. I mean, this was basically the company's flagship device. Most people had an iPod, even though hardly anyone had a Mac. From that consistent release schedule to then releasing the 6th gen model and then basically nothing else for 7 years. Any alterations to it were pretty much just in storage capacity, and the actual final version, the one that they discontinued in 2014, was introduced in 2009, which meant 5 straight years of nothing new for the original iPod. It went from dominating the cultural zeitgeist and pretty much saving Apple as a company to an afterthought as soon as the iPhone launched. Now, the iPod Touch, which was essentially the replacement of the classic iPod, held on a bit longer, and it was actually not discontinued until 2022. But realistically, that was meant to be like a bridge device. Something you had if you didn't have an iPhone, but was only really meant to hold you over until you did get an iPhone. But alas, even that is gone too now. Now, having discussed how the biggest player in the digital audio market was not even taking that market seriously anymore, you can imagine my confusion upon seeing that Sony still made Walkmans. Like, it took a while to phase out the iPod because for a few years there, a dedicated music experience on a phone was like a new thing. And while the iPhone did it well, other phones still had to catch up as the full-featured smartphone market shifted into what it is today. But it's been a good few years since this was an issue, with streaming taking over, with Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, pick your poison. It's been long enough, and the smartphone market is so saturated with capable devices that I can't imagine the market and demand for people seeking a single-use device just for music could possibly be big enough to justify Sony spending money to produce the Walkman digital music player, right? Like, you're with me on this. Like, simply, this product existing in 2024 makes very little sense. So imagine my further bewilderment when I click on the Walkman section and I'm greeted to a page with not just several different Walkman models to choose from, but the most expensive of which is $3,700. And all it's built for is just playing music. How is that possible? It was already confusing enough to me that a product like this even exists, but for it to be one of the most expensive consumer products that the company makes? What? Now, from what I've seen of it, it does run Android, so single-use device does have an asterisk next to it, I guess. It apparently can use apps, anything on the Google Play Store, but it is not designed or optimized for that at all in any way, so really you can't. Like, you can sort of, but no, this thing only really plays music reliably. And any review I've seen of this device, no one mentions that fact at all. They just talk about the sound quality and how it works as a music player. It is never mentioned that it can also do other things. So, nobody's doing that. Even if you go a step down, the second most expensive one is still $1,400. What the fuck do these things sound like? For that money, the sound quality better be so damn superb that it just... stop my heart. I better see God when I put my earbuds in. He'll lean over to me and whisper in my ear, Zeppelin, huh? I'll be like, fuck yeah. So I had to get to the bottom of this, and after a little digging around to see who's actually buying this thing, I found that it was mostly intense audiophiles. Naturally, who else could you possibly convince to spend this kind of money on a music player? Obviously, music means a lot to me, it always has, and I would like to have my listening experience be the best that it can be, but I can't imagine ever being able to discern audio quality to such a precise degree that I would ever be able to justify paying that much more. But again, I've never heard it, so I don't know. Now, I'm probably not spraying nearly $4,000 on a device just for listening to music anytime soon. Unless y'all want that. Unless y'all watching this video decide that you really want to see like an average schmuck's opinion on an ultra high fidelity audio equipment. Yeah, I'll do that. Throw me some money in the links in the description. I'll do it. If I get $4,000, I'll fucking do it. I will buy this damn thing and I will make a huge fool of myself reviewing it. Why not? I kind of hope you do, but also kind of hope you don't, because I will absolutely embarrass myself. Oh, Lord. And apparently Sony isn't the only one here. Digging around, I became introduced to the world of DAPs, digital audio players, which is apparently a niche but thriving market of premium devices all designed with the music listening experience in mind. And all of this made me very nostalgic. As I said at the beginning of the video, we've come full circle. This is how I got here. This is why I was thinking about it. I kind of really miss the days of single-use devices like the iPod. I miss listening to music without anything buzzing or dinging or alerting me in any way to some notification that ultimately I probably don't care about. Like 9 out of 10 times the alert is just some bullshit from an advertiser. I'll be trying to float off in the beauty of Dark Side of the Moon and then all of a sudden, hey, you chubby fuck, you probably want some Uber Eats right now, don't you? Like, yeah, cool, thanks for interrupting my music listening experience, and also, now I'm hungry. And you may say, oh, I just put on that old do not disturb mode, and then you don't gotta worry about it, which is true, I guess, but whether or not my phone is alerting me, I am still at all times consciously aware that everything and anything is available to me in an instant. You could blame me or my poor willpower, but the truth is the average person will touch their smartphone, let me get this number right, 2,617 times per day. The companies that design the apps we use regularly, mostly the social media ones, have perfected dopamine manipulation so effectively that honestly, reaching for our phones isn't even really a habit at this point. It's practically instinct. If the phone isn't interrupting you, it is subconsciously urging you to interrupt yourself. Lying in my bed with my headphones in, listening to whatever I was in the mood for on my iPod, that was some of the best memories I have. And it was these moments of peace, just being able to lose myself in music, that made me fall in love with it in the first place. That made me decide I wanted to make my own. So that one day, maybe I could give some other troubled soul that same feeling of escape and emotional catharsis. It has been a very very long time since I've been able to just listen to music in that same way. And maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I don't know. There's lots of things I do that were a lot more fun when I was younger. But I'd wager the fact that my music listening experience has been intruded upon by constant notifications and endless scrolls, doing everything in their power to command my attention is probably the biggest reason. I feel like a lot of us are having this realization where the ever-present information monolith has really inhibited our ability to just be present and just enjoy things without the itching desire to just check what else is going on. To the point where products such as dumb phones are starting to really pick up traction as people try to remove as much mobile internet out of their lives as they can while still functioning in modern society. What I'm getting at is that I really miss the idea of a single-use device. A gadget that only does one thing, but does it really well. Maybe that's just me being overly nostalgic, I don't know, but the iPod really was like the perfect middle ground. Way more convenient and capable than, say, a CD or cassette player, but still simple enough that it allowed us to focus on the one thing and just enjoy the one thing. I wouldn't mind if we got the old iPod back, and not the touch, because as stated, that was really no different from the phone. I mean the classic scroll wheel, tiny screen iPod. Obviously, Apple knows the market isn't big enough to justify the cost of making a product like that anymore, and Sony went in the exact opposite direction, treating the market as a niche space for enthusiasts willing to pay top dollar for the highest quality. Assumedly the highest quality. We'll find out, maybe. Which, honestly, that sounds like the Apple thing to do. They go on and on about Apple Music's lossless audio and the high quality of their headphones. They charge $600 for these monstrosities, yet apparently lossless isn't even achievable over Bluetooth. So even if you buy these expensive-ass headphones and pay for Apple Music to have that lossless audio, you're not even getting it. Why not make a mid-tier music player for audiophiles with a headphone jack and maybe some revised AirPods Max that could actually give you the best audio experience? Apple is no stranger to releasing expensive products designed specifically for niche pro enthusiasts. There's even an ever-growing market of retro tech and distraction-free tech. People are actually buying and modding old iPods and even Zunes because they long for this experience and can't get it anywhere else. Much like vinyl's made a comeback as people kind of realized, they like owning their music, retro devices like the iPod or Zune, or even the Walkman are having a bit of a renaissance. And while it's still fairly niche right now, so was collecting vinyl. Until it wasn't. Why not get a piece of that pie, Apple? Keep the interface simple, give it the ability to use the streaming platform of your choice, don't get greedy and stick it just for Apple Music, because a lot of people have Spotify. And then, nothing else, and I think there'd be some interest. I'd buy it. And they could still charge a fairly decent amount. When the iPods were new, back in the day when these things were first coming out, this would be like $400 to $500. What's stopping them from charging that same price these days? They could totally do it. They have old tech and just charge that premium of it. That sounds exactly like something the company would do. So yes, maybe I would like that. Maybe I would buy that. But would you? I'm curious. Go ahead and comment below. What is your opinion on all of this? Whether or not you think a device like that has a home in the modern tech market, or if it's just like an antiquated idea that needs to be let go. Or regardless of that, if you're just a music lover and you also kind of miss it. Or do you think there's any value or validity to the premium DAB market that currently exists? If you own one, how is it? Are they worth the price tag? What exactly makes them so different? I am super curious to know. If you like this video, please strum the thumb, up picking or down picking, any which way. It's okay. Please subscribe if you'd like to come back. Thank you for coming back if you're already subscribed. Always a pleasure, and I'll see you at the next gig.